Stardew Valley, best summarized as reject office life, embrace agriculture. Say goodbye to the hustle and bustle in Zuzu City and hello to the drama and trauma hidden within Pelican Town. For this review, there will be spoilers, so keep that in mind. Here are the things I'll be going over for this review with the timestamps in the description. By the way, this game can be played on the PC, Nintendo Switch, Xbox One, PlayStation 4, PlayStation Vita, iOS, and Android. I'll be using the PC version. There's recent news that your grandfather passed away and you inherited the farm in his will. The story starts with you in the day-to-day life working in a monotonous bland office. It's until a little later working in the office that you decide to go to the farm that he left for you. Once there, you'll meet a man named Louise, the mayor of Pelican Town, and Robin, one productive carpenter, who's looking forward to seeing how you will handle the farm by yourself. They explain bits and pieces and you're off on your own. You'll also get a letter saying to expect a visit at the end of the second winter, or in terms of the game, at the start of the third year. With that in mind, you're free to do whatever you want while at Pelican Town. There's also cutscenes that flesh out characters and usually involve choice of how to respond, which either gives more friendship or takes away friendship. In the end, there's not much consequences regardless of which dialogue you choose. Past the cutscenes, and if you read between the lines, there's lots of themes as you look closer. Small businesses versus big business, depression, deception, and more. Characters who have more nuance than one would first believe. The townsfolk have a lot more baggage going on. Pierre at first seems like a friendly small business owner, however, he has to compete with Joja, a corporation, so he has to have a focus on money, which puts a strain on his relationship with Caroline. During events, he is seen selling things rather than spending time with the others. Caroline and Pierre's relationship seems rocky, and Abigail's hair color bears a striking resemblance to Rasmodius, the wizard located west of the Marnie's ranch. There's also theories that speculate that Caroline may have had an affair with the wizard given how unattentive Pierre seems to be. Louis, despite his lip service, does next to nothing of actual service, such as the pollution in the rivers and lakes, the bus not being fixed, and in his heart event, has enough funds to have a statue of himself made of gold. His relation with Marnie leaves many questions. Why don't they just get together? Why do they need to sneak around? Is it the thrill? Does he not want to be in a relationship? Who really knows? There's board quests. Sure, it provides an opportunity for townsfolk to help one another, but sometimes it seems like the mayor just does not want to help others himself. Kent with his PTSD from the war, like the popcorn scene. Shane and his depression, along with alcoholism. Sebastian's a shut-in, basically with some neglect sprinkled in. Penny and her relationship with her mother Pam showcases abuse. I won't say any more, as there's plenty still available. I will say though, after spending weeks bribing them, seeing the friendships grow, interacting with them, and choosing to either agree or disagree with them, I did get invested in their stories, hoping things turned out well for them. These families and individuals that at first glance may seem like a happy-go-lucky town is actually a normal town full of families with problems like everyone else, nuanced in their own way that lets the player create their own stories. Enough of stories, let's go on to the mechanics. As you play your farm persona, you can farm, toil the soil, plant the crops, water the crops, harvest your work, upgrade tools with golden bars, and the stronger it gets, it becomes. Stronger axes can chop down the mahogany trees, and stronger pickaxes can access the right side of the mine, and a meteor if you happen to be lucky. The more you progress in the game, the higher your skill becomes, and once you reach either level 5 or level 10, you can choose one skill or another. I would do some research about which skill to choose, depending on what kind of farmer you want to become. As for foraging, you can toil and find clay and other items. You can mine and slay monsters in the mine. You can give gifts, give love, and even give hate. With gifts in specific, you have a maximum of 2 per week. When it's their birthday, the points are multiplied depending on what you give them. There's also the Stardew Wiki to show the best things to give them. From my perspective, it's interesting seeing what characters really love versus what they really loathe. You can also find love, or start family, and even get children. There's plenty of bachelors and bachelorettes, though to advance the relationship, it requires bouquets from Pierre's shop. Give them gifts, talk to them, learn what you can, and decide if they're your soulmate or the next let's just stay friends. Marriage requires a mermaid's pendant, accessible on the beach on the right side, but only if you fix the bridge with 300 wood, and if it's raining that day. The mermaid's pendant also costs money. You can also divorce your lover with the book in Luisa's house, though that too costs money. You can also network, help build a community, or join the JoJo Corporation. You can make your own house bigger, fund projects for coops, farms, and other buildings. For the building projects, it requires lots of gold and research such as stone and wood. I do like the variety of add-ons you can have for the house, and with each building upgrade you can unlock a new animal, plus you can have many of the same buildings. Keep in mind it does take a few days for Robin to build it, and she does fast and solid work. There's also lots of decorations you can add to make the house very personalized and cozy, which each season there's a new aesthetic, and the grass all around, which can also be used to feed your animals, are all gone in the winter. And the leaves from the trees also go away. Some trees have a chance to become a giant mushroom, which can also be tapped for resources as well. So if you want hay from side in the grass, any season except winter is good. Take on quests for the villagers ranging from getting a certain type of fish, crop, or mineral, to even gathering a certain amount of resources or slaying a set amount of monsters in the mines. Once you slay a certain amount of monsters, you can get some rewards from the Adventurers Guild next to the mines as well, and they also sell swords, boots, and rings, though they're quite expensive. You can also take care of animals, and the list goes on. These are some of the things you can do in the game, but let's dig deeper about how it feels, in other words, the gameplay itself. The movement is smooth, you can go in all 8 directions. In the mines, the combat is easy, but when you get surrounded and aren't using a mouse to aim with a weapon, it's a difficult situation. You faint once the health bar reaches 0, you'll lose a fair amount of cash and lose some items. Personally, I usually restart the day when that happens since I lose my sword. You can wake up in the clinic or at the start of the mines. Be mindful of your energy and the time. If you're not in the bed by 2 AM or lose all your energy outside, you'll be awoken by someone else saying they saw someone taking something, usually cash, and then that person who woke you up scared them off. I really wonder who would rob the local farmer though. Or you wake up at your house but with reduced energy and health. Nothing food can't fix. Since it's a sandbox game, you don't have to do anything, however. There's plenty to do, and the rewards of money, friendship points, unlocking recipes, and getting items in the mailbox is a nice incentive to interact with the others. There's lots of creative freedom when it comes to which crops you can plant, how you can organize your house, which buildings to max out, or even how many you want, depending if you have enough resources. There's some limitations as to which crops you can grow depending on what season it is. However, the seeds sold in PR are usually the ones able to be grown for the season, save for the trees that can be grown, but their crops can only be grown during a specific season unless you're using the greenhouse. That's the gameplay more or less. I hope that sounded right. Speaking of sound, the game's music gets its own section given how well it sets the atmosphere. I do want to give a quick anecdote first, and it does relate to the music, so just bear with me. I remember playing a game on mute while talking to a friend, Locke. He talked about how you should try listening to the music while playing the game, since it does help with the atmosphere. At the time, I didn't give too much thought, but eventually I did give it a shot, just why not? And I listened to the soundtrack, and I do have to say, it really does wonders to the overall experience. I'm only saying this because I didn't really listen to a game's soundtrack prior. More so I listened, but not too deeply, if that makes sense. Hear that? That's the sound of the cozy. It's vibes. Cozy vibes. Which makes sense for a game given that it's usually relaxing. Unless it's the mines or the cavern. That aside, there's different music for the seasons, areas, and cutscenes. Generally peaceful music. Each song really sets the atmosphere as peaceful, except for the mines where it has combat. When I was exploring the mines, and notably Skull Cavern, I noticed the emphasis on sound design. The attention to detail really makes things pop. Like after a long day of throwing things into a bin, you can hear the coin stack to show your day's profit. From the monsters being hit by your sword, or your weapon, your shoes against the environment during any settings, all of the things to help with the immersion. Yeah, that's the word that simulator games want to emulate for the players. Immersion. Also, the small details like the noise when the villager either likes or dislikes the item adds the emphasis with your actions, like it really made their day that they got this present, or the confusion and maybe even dislike they'll have towards you for giving them such an item and calling it a present. With the audio taken care of, let's focus on the visuals. The graphics are easy for the computer, so that's a plus for someone with low PC specs. With the art style, it's good, and the items are detailed enough, and you can usually tell what things are at first glance. The backgrounds and the areas are detailed and well done. I think now's a good time to talk about the difficulty of the game. It's a very straightforward and easygoing game, unless you're trying to 100% everything, which goes to catching every fish, crop, friendship, achievement of the game, max skills, and so forth. The Skull Cave is located in Calico Desert. I find it personally really difficult when the lizards swarm you. Also, while in the mines or tolling soil with the worms, there's a percentage of getting an artifact which you can donate to the museum. There's an achievement for donating a certain amount. It's RNG, or a random number generator, of whether you get a new artifact or an old one. Trying to complete that one isn't difficult per se, more so tedious and grindy as you have to rely on luck, though there's food that grants a boost in luck, albeit for a brief period of time. This reminds me, the cooking is really straightforward, just have the ingredients regardless of quality. For a casual playthrough, it's not very difficult, straightforward, but does require resource management and remembering things like what items the townsfolk like, where to get certain resources, time it takes to get the crops growing, which seasons have certain fish available. Though with the Stardew Wiki, it shouldn't be too much of an issue. Growing trees or saving money to buy upgrades or other items requires lots of time and investments. So the longer you play, the likelier you are to build up resources, have various ways to earn thousands without too much hassle, and it being only a matter of time before you have enough funds to upgrade or buy something expensive. The more efficient you are with numbers and time management, the easier the game will be probably. Fulfilling the bundles does take a bit of time, and the only difficult thing might be the fish tank, as only certain fish are available in certain areas, or even certain times or even weather. You have to hope you have a good fishing rod, some bait, and skill as to not have your ankles broken by a fish. If you're lucky, the cart that arrives Friday and Sundays might have something you need for the bundle. With the game being done, the question is, what's the replayability of all of it? I guess the replayability lies within what gender you can play as, what starting house and appearance you have, or choosing which perks to get next time. But ultimately, doing everything, it's up to the player if they want to complete 1 year or 3 years or play beyond that. Or if they want to do a JoJo route after doing a community service route, or marry someone else. Though you can get a divorce and start from scratch. It doesn't matter which gender you are, as you can marry anyone of the singles. I find that refreshing, as you're usually stuck to getting with the opposite gender or remaining single. So you can have like a female farmer with Leia, or like a male farmer with a male character. Or you can also go with the hetero options, or with the opposite gender, that's fine. Next is getting untapped potential, I see or would like to see. More unique dialogue depending on who you are married to, like Clint's thoughts if you married Emily. Like, although you did quote unquote win, and he sort of moved on, like what else will you talk about? Like maybe the dating scene when you're old and in a small town. Also like a scene where you confront them about issues, not just like a one-liner, but an actual conversation where things can branch off into new dialogue for the rest of the game. DLC, like run for mayor against Louise, or take over George's Market for all your quote-unquote loyal support. Years later, see what happens after you don't marry or see what they do. Like a Monsters update expansion. I wish there was a way to increase the speed aside from eating food. When Christmas Secret Santa, your Secret Santa has a more unique gift depending on hearts. If it's maxed out, then it'll be like a personal item or something. More conflict amongst the townsfolk, like Linus trying to help out, but one of the townsfolk don't trust him. Pierre not paying taxes. If someone wants to leave Pelican Town, like do you either help them or make sure they stay? Something gets stolen and you have to prove someone else's innocence. It's not really like the game's mechanics, but it could be a tested memory of like how well you know the townsfolk. With that aside, I guess we can talk about some tips and tricks. Obviously, there's the Stardew Valley Wikipedia. Use it if you're stuck or aiming for a specific item to complete, either with like a help quest or the community bundles. Each bundle has a nice reward, like unlocking the quarry and the Calico Desert. The order is up to you. For farming, watering each crop takes a while, but once you either upgrade the watering can or craft the sprinklers, then it does save you some time. There's 4 seasons, each only being a month rather than a few. There's 2 events for each month where you can do this or that. Here's a list, and the ones in bold are where you can get something nice. Some are just some fun events though. You get to have all the townsfolk in one area and see them interact with one another. There's a mine, a good place to crack rocks, kill enemies. When you see worms, use the hoe. Usually there's something worthwhile. There's also secret notes scattered. It has a percentage as a drop rate against monsters, mining rocks and digging and such. There's a branching path between the community center and JoJo Mart. The JoJo Mart has bundles bought with lots of gold, though you can either get routes done within a year. For choosing the community route, the greenhouse, the minecarts, the bridge, the quarry, a fish tank, act as rewards. JoJo does the same thing, but requires lots of money. I recommend looking up the Wikipedia to find out where the items are. Like for the fish, only certain ones are catchable at limited times or seasons. Like the sturgeon roe, it can only be like accessible at the lake when it's raining, like and at summer, I believe. I like using the bee houses and setting them around crops for the most amount of cash. In the fall is when you can produce the most amount for the fairy rose honey. After a while, I took the truffle pill and became oil based. The reason why I took the truffle pill is although pigs are later in the game and you need to have upgraded the barn, a pig can find a truffle, and putting the truffle in the oil maker makes truffle oil and fetches around 1k. So if you have like a bunch of pigs and you have like a lot of oil makers and have a lot of like oil truffle as a result, it produces a lot more than the honey and whatever kind is in the span it takes to produce like honey in 4 days. And the crops for the flower to bloom changes the honey identification. Click the bucket on the cows and goats for their milk. I thought there would be a sign indicating they need milking, but I'm a clown. Also, Marnie sells an autocropper which fetches the animal goods and gives them hay, but it's a pricey 25k. The upgraded coops and barns auto-feeds the animals, so yeah. Unlocking the seller's endgame stuff, but throwing cheese and wine makes things 10 out of 10 or iridium quality. The pomegranates have more value and the best planted in the greenhouse alongside other plants that produce after the first harvest like blueberries, cactus fruits, and strawberries, to name a few. Mass produced with the animal products as they sell for a lot after you process them. Stay organized, it saves you time. Getting grandfather's approval leads to getting iridium ore, which is valuable for iridium sprinklers. If you do disappoint him, you can always just put a diamond at the diamond-shaped hole and then he can go back for another round so you don't have to wait another year for the analysis. Once you get all 4 candles, then you can get an infinite amount of iridium. Use the explosives once you're in the skull cavern. It saves time and stock up on cooking since it restores lots of health and energy. The wiki strip shows you which gifts are the best if you're going for the maximum hearts. Learning more about the characters through the interactions. If you don't want to lose hearts either, double check, though that does hamper the first playthrough experience. Most importantly, although cliche, have fun. With that said, here's my final thoughts about Stardew Valley. Stardew Valley is addictive with how it makes you feel productive. The sense of progression goes to watering each crop to having iridium sprinklers water 24 crops for you. The community center's various rewards make you want to see what happens. Like what happens when you actually do unlock the desert, what's at the desert. I think there's some relatability in the situation, not the inheritance part, but wanting to leave the current life and do something new, something fresh. Becoming a farmer is certainly difficult from an office environment. The player gets to embrace agriculture and be their own boss. It is grindy and the need to succeed is capitalism 101. Given how it's a farming simulator, it makes sense why you need to put time and effort into it, though that goes for about anything in life really. If you want to rebuild the community center, then you do have to put in the effort. The branching paths of community center or joining the JoJo Mart does add nuance in the story that you branch to. Either become the force to bind the community or the force that throws big business in a small town. This game was made by Concerned Ape, or Eric Ballone. He made the assets, wrote the code, composed the music, and gave characters depth. It's still a game made by a one-man army. You find yourself on the Stardew Wiki trying to find what happens to get friendship points the fastest, which crop is the most efficient, which dialogue reaps the most points, or even trying to understand what's happening in the game. Sometimes you need to go in blind to get the experience. You might axe your own crop by mistake, give someone the wrong item, feign in the mines, and so forth. And even if there's lack of consequences, it's nice that the game doesn't take itself too seriously. If you want to become successful, be smart with how you manage both your time and resources. Don't forget to connect with the people along the way, it might be worth it. Speaking of people, lots of the townsfolk have their own baggage, unfulfilled ambitions, and struggles like you and me. Helping them out, giving them gifts, talking to them, and ultimately seeing them succeed depending on if you can give them the support and confidence needed is a journey in itself. Characters that seem unlikable may actually have a harder goal. Stardew Valley is definitely a game for those who enjoy farming simulators and games with peaceful and comfy vibes. If you have some sort of goal in mind, like earning enough to save the community center or something, the game feels smoother as you're conditioned to do these things to get your tasks done. There's plenty of things to do, great for casual players who like a sense of progression and willing to put their time into it. The customization is pretty decent in the house and you can get pretty crazy with it. The music also helps create this atmosphere of a peaceful town and everything that will be alright. The townsfolk giving gifts, recipes, and letters as you deepen the relationship feels wholesome and old-fashioned. Getting to know them, understanding their flaws and how they became the way they are, and still caring for them, that's a unique experience in itself. Pelican Town is full of unique and even tragic characters, but the burden ultimately falls onto you to help build bridges and help the community become stronger. Reaching out and helping others has its benefits. The themes of the game, once you reach deeper, is surprising, more than meets the eye kind of deal. It makes you want to learn more and see these issues to the very end. There's also various clues scattered around dialogue to give interesting narratives. That's just my review, as this game is something I enjoyed. As for others, it may not be the gaming experience they want. The same can be said for people who dislike chore simulators and the grind to access new things slowly. Furthermore, the way the game feels slow when it comes to befriending people and earning money, even if they're proficient with their time, it's more of a slow burn when compared to other action-packed games. The graphics are nice and detailed, it's easy for the PC, the sound selection is good regardless. It's tiresome for completionists, especially if you get dupes, then new artifacts. Dealing with a town that relies on you to solve everything adds to a savior complex, which is not healthy. There's some comfy vibes, which may translate for boring vibes for others. For the sake of numbers, I'd say 9 out of 10 for those into comfy farming games, and a 4 out of 10 for people whose tastes aren't aligned with the genre that's Stardew Valley. I hope you enjoyed the video. Comment your thoughts, like what you liked or disliked about Stardew Valley, things I can improve upon, or games you like to see me review. Also, shout out to V1 Legend for beta reading the script, and Lock on Me for letting me tell the anecdote. If there's anything I missed, all I can say is that's more content for you to discover on your own. Since one hand, I'd like to tell you, the viewers, everything I know, on another, something should be experienced rather than just told through someone else's perspective. And I haven't 100% this game myself either. I only started playing the game around, I played back in high school, and then I started playing again in college because I was trying to procrastinate. I ended up playing it in class at some point because I was just that addicted to it. And then one of my classmates told me, since he saw me playing it like so, apparently I played it so frequently, he ended up playing it himself. Like he got it for the Xbox and like for the PC. And apparently he told me he had a really good experience, and he's really happy that I convinced him to play it. Which is weird because like I think that was the first time I ever talked to the guy in that one conversation. But yeah. Alright, peace guys.